Hi, Mary here, and today we are talking about whether anyone can write a book. Can anybody write a book? Now, my short answer to this question, my oversimplified answer, is going to be no, not everyone can write a book. And I think that's probably true for obvious reasons, which we will get into. But to the question of whether you, person who is watching or listening to this, can write a book, I would venture a yes, because something has brought you here, which means you want it. And I really want to break this question down into three requirements. I think three serious requirements it takes to be able to write a book. And by book, I mean a decent book, like a sellable book. Okay. And so let's go ahead and just dive right into what those three requirements are. The first is want. The second is perseverance. And the third is skill. Now, these probably seem maybe kind of obvious, maybe kind of generic, but I'm going to actually spend some time unpacking specifically what I mean by each of them. So please just, bear with me while we kind of go through these, because I do think there's stuff for you to glean here if you're wondering if you're someone who can write a book. Okay, the first one, want. You need to want to write a book badly. Like, it needs to burn in you. And this may seem obvious, but as someone who's been writing for many years, and more recently who has become a writing coach, I've met many people who say they want to write a book, but I can sense that they maybe don't want to write it. I mean, they want to write a book the same way I want to learn French. It's like every 6 months, I spend $14 on an app, on a 6-month subscription to an app that I use for 3 nights and then lose interest and then feel bad about spending the money. It's if I really wanted to learn French, I would make it a priority. If you really want to write a book, you know it because it eats at you. And I am not saying that if you haven't made time for it, you don't really want it. Like, there are definitely things that I really want that I haven't made time for yet. I want to see the Northern Lights. I want to write a poem that I'm really proud of. I want to have a second child. Like, these are things that I know I very much want, and that those wants are strong. And at some point, I will prioritize them. So the fact that I haven't prioritized them yet doesn't mean that I don't want them in a strong way, but it does mean that, like, they are categorically different than my desire to learn French. I am not sure I will ever truly prioritize learning French, and that's okay. That's okay. There are other things I'm choosing to prioritize instead. So the question for you is, how badly do you actually want to write a book? Because here's what I just want you to know about. This is what you can expect. Writing a book will take years of your life. We'll get more into that in a moment. It typically takes at least 5 hours a week of writing when you're actively working on the draft. You are going to have to work through inner demons like, am I worthy? Am I smart enough? Am I creative enough? You are going to have to let go of control in a way that you likely have not before. And you're going to have to accept the possibility of failure, because none of us know if a book we write is going to be published until we do it, when we're first-time authors, unless you are Tom Hanks or Lena Dunham or Tom Dunham or Leah Hanks. You are going to have to write this book without knowing for sure that you're going to get a book deal. And so you got to want it. You got to want it enough to go out on faith. Now, if reading this list on the screen makes you cringe, but doesn't make you not want it, congratulations, you probably have the want. The second requirement is perseverance. And I don't mean to sound condescending saying this. I know that you know that writing a book is a big undertaking and that it takes a lot of work. Not just any bozo can just do it. So I don't mean to condescend. But unless you are in the 0.001% of writers, writing and publishing your first book is going to take you longer than you think it will, and then you want it to. It's been true for myself. It's been true for every writer I've known. And this is why you need to like writing, because if you don't enjoy the process, you're probably going to bow out before you actually make it to the end. So best case scenario, to give you a timeline, here is what you could expect. In an ideal world, here is what you could expect. You write your first draft in 3 months. You set your draft aside for a month, you revise it in another month. You only spend a couple of months finding a literary agent. You only spend a couple of months working with your literary agent on the draft. Your agent sells the novel about a year after you wrote it. Yay. You then spend the better part of the next year working with your editor on that draft because your editor will have notes for you. Then when it's done, it's finally done, it goes to production and you wait for it to hit shelves. And 2 years after you started writing it, it hits shelves and you begin to promote it and you never stop. This is the shortest possible timeline. This is not a normal timeline. A normal timeline is actually longer than this. When you read this, this whole process for when you read this took me about 7 years. And for Privilege, it was 3 to 4 years, which was on the short end. So this is really a minimum that I'm giving you here. And I'm not doing this, again, to scare you, but just to say, you got to know what you're in for. And if knowing what you're in for, you still want it, fantastic. Like, I will see you inside my course because I'm here to help you write your book. Okay. So if reading this timeline doesn't freak you out, that's a great sign. Last but not least, you need to have skill. You need to know how to write a good sentence, and you need to know how to put sentences together well so that the rhythm of your writing is readable. In other words, it doesn't feel like the literary equivalent of an automatic weapon, and it doesn't cause the reader to work or force the reader to work so hard to finish a paragraph that by the next paragraph they're exhausted and want to put it down. Okay. I also don't want you to think by telling you need to know how to write a sentence and that you need to know how to string sentences together well, that I'm saying you need to be educated in a kind of classical sense. You don't. I have worked with people who don't have high school educations who are incredible writers. And I have worked with more lawyers and PhDs than I can count who have been burdened by their obsession with these weird grammatical technicalities that people like lawyers obsess over, like whom, and not ending a sentence with an infinitive. I mean, things like this that literally cripple or actually cripple their fiction because characters don't talk like that. People don't talk like that, and they have to unlearn that. So I'm not equating knowing how to write well, write fiction well, or memoir, write creatively well, to education. Completely separate things. You don't need an MFA. You don't need a college degree. You don't even need a high school degree. Okay. But you still have to learn how to write. And the best way to learn how to write is to read and copy the people who do it well. Copy the people who do it in a way that you want to do it. Copy the writers you love. Okay, so read is the first way to really get good at this. And then the second way is to read the classic little handy grammar book, The Elements of Style. The illustrated edition of The Elements of Style is my favorite. It's adorable. It has these beautiful illustrations. It's a very small, very charming, very readable book. You can knock it out in a day, and it will just help you really feel confident in things like your sentence construction and your choices you're making and just basic grammatical rules, the difference between all right as one word and all right as two words, things like that. Have you never thought about that? This book will go over that for you. So The Elements of Style, definitely check that out. Okay, apart from this basic skill set of, sentence construction, everything else you can learn. And you can actually learn it quite quickly. I teach it in my course, the 12-week book draft. When it comes to writing a novel, there are as many things that you don't need to do as things that you do need to do. You don't need to make yourself miserable. You don't need to know everything about every character before you begin. You don't need to know how it ends. You don't need to outline. You don't even need to write every day. But you do need to know where you're going. You do need to know the why at the heart of your story. And that is the kind of thing that we go over in the course. So in sum, writing a book is like any other long-term ambitious goal. The mere effort of pursuing it is going to change you. It's the best growth experience I've ever had. Every book I write changes me, and it's one of my favorite things to do in the world is writing. And so if you feel the same way, if you relate to what I'm saying, you have it in you to write a book. So it's up to you to decide when you want to prioritize it in your life, to persevere and dedicate yourself to it when you do make that choice to prioritize it, and to make sure you enjoy the process, because that's what's going to keep you going. And if you'd like guidance as you pursue this goal, join our community. I will link to it. We would love to have you. Happy writing.